Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest, Eric Borstein, who's here to share with us from months to live to miles of hope. So what would you do if you were told you only had months to live? That was the reality for Eric Borstein, who was diagnosed with heart failure and given little time. But instead of giving up, Eric fought his way back. Through specialized in-home care, a personalized treatment plan, and major lifestyle changes, he now defies the odds, walking thousands of miles each year to raise awareness and funds for pulmonary arterial hypertension, research, and better treatment for others. As we recognize Pulmonary Hypertension Awareness Month, Eric Borstein, also known as the Walking Guy, joins us with more. So welcome to the show, Eric Borstein.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, my goodness, what an honor it is to have you here. First of all, could you share a little bit about your story and how you found out about your illness?
Yeah, so 5 years ago this past September, I collapsed in the bedroom from severe right heart failure and I almost died. I spent 16 days in the ICU where I was diagnosed with a very rare lung condition called pulmonary arterial hypertension, also known as PAH, a chronic terminal disease and a disease with no cure. It was in the hospital that I decided that I wasn't going to die and that I was going to live. I was sent home. I was given 2 to 4 months to live. I didn't know that. They told my wife that. And I came home and I started to walk. Walking helped to mitigate the side effects of the medications I'm on. And it also helped with positive mental health, which is so critical with somebody living with a chronic disease like myself. So between positive mental health, good nutrition, exercise, and the reliance on my village, family, friends, neighbors, here I am today.
Well, and so can you dive into what pulmonary hypertension is so that our audience can have a better understanding?
Yeah. So pulmonary hypertension is defined as high pressure in the lungs. PAH is defined, high pressure in the pulmonary arteries. So the arteries bringing blood from the heart to the lungs, and then the pulmonary arteries within the lungs. Some of the early symptoms of PAH are fatigue and shortness of breath. In my case, I was sick leading up to collapsing. I wasn't ignoring the symptoms, but I was scared to death to find out what was wrong. And I've learned that upwards of 75% of men don't go to the doctor when something's wrong. So as it progresses, as PAH progresses, it can progress into heart failure. And in my case, that's what it did. And when you're in heart failure, you have severe swelling in the abdomen, legs, and ankles. And it just becomes almost impossible to breathe.
So a lot of times when people feel sick and they don't go to the doctor, they think "Well, maybe it's just a cold or a flu, I'll get over it." Is that what you kind of experienced?
No, I was diagnosed with asthma as a kid, which can be a misdiagnosis of this disease. In my case, I was sick. I couldn't hardly breathe. In a lot of cases, it goes undiagnosed, or it goes undiagnosed. Especially in women. So it's important to get to the doctor, and it's important if you are misdiagnosed to advocate for yourself and not take no for an answer.
Would you say that your story is a cautionary tale for people to not delay those doctor visits?
100%. When something is wrong, go get checked out.
That's such a big deal. My goodness. And so you started walking. How did that first start? How did that progress?
So walking started in the hospital. People tell me I had 2 angels that were nurses that got me walking. That continued when I went home, and a mile turned into 2, turned into 3. Eventually, I was walking long distances, and I became known as the walking guy throughout West Los Angeles. I now walk 13 to 15 miles a day, upwards of 4,500 to 5,000 miles a year, and it's become my identity. So it was a very natural thing for me to start raising awareness that revolved around walking. And that's where ZB was born.
My goodness. Walking thousands of miles each year. What an incredible feat. What have those miles taught you, both physically and emotionally, about resilience?
Yeah, I talk a lot about positive mental health. And I've learned that for me, Walking not only has distanced myself from the ICU, but it's given me something that I love to do. And finding something you love to do equates to positive mental health. So, where is EB? I walk from LA to San Diego once a year. We started a movement that raises money for an organization called Team Phenomenal Hope, who serves unmet and underserved people around the country living with the disease.
So I know we've touched on this a little bit already, but can you share some of the signs and symptoms of PAH that everyone should know about?
Yeah, so some of the signs and symptoms are shortness of breath, fatigue, and as it progresses, you can go into heart failure, which is signs of swelling in the abdomen, ankles, and legs.
That's really something to be aware of. I
Yeah.
mean, you really turned what could have been a heartbreaking diagnosis into a mission of purpose. What mindset shift helped you to move from fear to determination?
I decided I wasn't going to die, and I had a lot to live for, and I have a lot to live for. And as it's progressed, you know, we have a very philanthropic background, and I decided that I was going to dedicate this next chapter to my life to help others, and I feel a sense of responsibility, carrying others who need it most.
I think that's so important. I mean, until I became aware of your story, I was not aware of PAH. And I
Yeah.
think it's so important that people know about that.
It's a very rare disease. 500 to 1,000 people are diagnosed every year with PAH. Only around 26,000 a year are living with PAH. So it is very rare. It's something that nobody in our world had ever heard of before I was diagnosed.
I understand that you were not expected to live, but you overcame a lot of obstacles. How did your care team that you have, how did they help you?
Yeah. So from not going to the doctor to now having the best cardiologist, the best psychologist, and then my CVS specialty care team. When I left the hospital, I was put on a pump and the medication was being administered straight into my heart 24 hours a day. They never thought I was going to get off that pump. So I had a nurse coming to the house once a week and she became part of the family. And then after a year, my right ventricle made almost a complete recovery. I was taken off the pump and CVS has still become, they've remained a lifeline to me. I get my drugs delivered once a month. They have 24/7 care online, and they have an online pharmacist where if I need a second opinion, I can get that. So collectively, they've become part of my village and part of my team.
We all need a village, especially when it comes to situations like that, no one can prepare for that.
No.
My goodness. Well, and so at what point, I know you said you started walking in the hospital. How was it during that first year? You have a pump on. How was it walking and being out doing your exercises then?
I learned very early on that walking helped mitigate the side effects, and that was critical in me getting better. The more medication that I could be on, the more I could tolerate, the better chance I had to survive. And so I started to walk, and it helped, but it also helped clear my head. And I've learned that that part of it, positive mental health, is almost equal to modern medicine. And so it became something that I love to do, and it's become part of my identity. And now it's become something that we raise money for. I'm proud to say that over the last 2 years we've raised almost $420,000, all for the benefit of Team Phenomenal Hope and helping people around the country living with PH that need it most.
I mean, what an inspiration. Congratulations. I mean, that's a lot of
Thank you.
money to raise for that.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, you've really become this voice for PH. What message do you hope that others living with PH take away from your journey?
Yeah, I really have three messages. Number one, find something you love to do, because I've learned that finding something you love to do equates to positive mental health. The second is rely on your village. For years, I could have been surrounded by 100 people and I was alone because I was suffocating. Um, you're not alone. And third, everybody is going to be faced with adversity at some time in their life. And, it's taking that next step. And if you do, that there's hope.
Well, I think that's such a beautiful message. And can you share? I know you've shared so much already, but can you share the inspiration behind your fundraising walk and how that mission came to be?
Yeah. It was really born, out of our family. And again, helping others is something that's always become natural to me and my family. And then after my diagnosis and after I was, distancing myself from the ICU, and we wanted to raise money for those that needed it most. With everything going on in this country, it's becoming harder and harder for a lot of people. And I really feel that it's a responsibility of mine, using my voice, using my story to help those that don't have a voice and that need it most.
And so many people are struggling, and being able to be part of a community and ask for help is such a big deal. And
Yeah.
I understand this collaboration with CVS as part of your care team was a big portion of that. I mean, so they brought you prescriptions every month. What was that like?
Yeah. In the beginning, we look back on it and it was critical. Having a nurse, just having somebody there that understood the disease, having somebody there that could just be a calming voice, in a time that was really chaos especially for my wife, the caregiver goes unnoticed and the spouse in a case like mine goes unnoticed. So in that case, she was so helpful to my wife and kids. And then as it's progressed and I've been on the oral meds, I get the oral meds once a month. I get them from different parts of the country, and sometimes weather gets in the way, but they're there. I've never missed a dose. And if I do need a second opinion on something, they do have a pharmacist on call. So it's just reassuring to know that there's somebody else in my corner along with my doctors, that if I ever need it.
Well, that sounds like a major shout out to not only your doctors, but the CVS team. I mean, what a great job they did.
They did, and they still do.
How can people learn more about your journey and be involved?
Yeah. You can go to cvshealth.com, or you can go to whereiseb.org and learn a lot more about my story.
Well, Eric, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
If you'd like to learn more about Eric's journey, visit his website, whereiseb.org. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.